Welcome to Minibar. It is one of my favorite days of the year. Hi, I'm Paul Cantrell. I am a lifelong software developer. I teach computer science and Mac, and I've done a lot of tech work around town over the last few decades. And I'm also a pianist, a composer, a lover of hiking. This is not the talk I want to be giving at all. My past Minibar talks have included, I talked about the history of programming languages. I talked about building the interactive Make a Bonsai exhibit for the Coven Conservatory. Go make a bonsai. It's fun, I promise. That's what I want to be doing. But, you know, here we are, not choosing the time we live in. Welcome to the present moment. This seemed like the talk I needed to give, I guess. I want to say briefly what my role is and where I'm situated in relationship to this talk. I live in South Minneapolis. I live in Longfellow. I live right on the border of the highest region of ice activity. A few blocks east of me, things were pretty quiet, and a few blocks west of me was just a kind of hell. I'm a white guy who lives in South Minneapolis, who's comfortable and privileged enough to do something, and so I did. I was involved in the response. I'm not going to give you a detailed accounting of what I did. I just want to say that my role in it, I did nothing illegal, and I did nothing unethical. Thank you. But I want to emphasize that there are people who did 10 and 100 times what I did, so don't infer too much. I'm just one guy who helped show up. In the middle of doing this work, as a technology person, I noticed that technology came up a lot, and I noticed a lot of the things that I talked with about my students and my consulting clients and software teams showing up in the work that we were doing. So this talk is about lessons that I want us all to learn from the experience of this winter. The first lesson, just if you work in technology at all and you're trying to solve a problem, you've got to know what problem you're solving. As the late Dave Hussman said, if you don't know where you're going, it's easy to get there really fast. Dave. What problem are we solving this winter during the ice invasion? What is our goal? Our goal is pretty simple. We're trying to protect our neighbors. We're trying to protect each other. People are in physical danger. They are in danger of being kidnapped. And our goal is to protect humans. And our goal is for the people who are less vulnerable to protect the people who are more vulnerable. There's a lot more to say about that, but that's another talk. What activities are we undertaking in order to protect human beings? We're doing a lot of mutual aid, which means things like buying groceries for people who are sheltering at home, giving financial support and rent relief to people who are unable to work because it's not safe for them to go to work. We are trying to warn people about danger. That's what the whistles are for. We are trying to observe what's going on, which it turns out is extremely important. Documenting is one of the most important forms of authoritarian resistance that there is, and people behave differently when they know they're being watched. We saw this in the actions of ICE. The kidnappings that were observed, on average, were much less violent than the ones that weren't. A few very violent things you've probably seen videos of. Those are the exception, actually. Most of the violence went unrecorded, and we know about it only because we found out what happened to people after the fact. So observation is actually a form of active defense. And there were a lot of questions I got online. You know, there's only 3,000 of them, and how many of you are there? You should just take them. Yeah, actually, that would work once. But let's be clear, this ice invasion was not about kidnapping individuals. We were at the time, and arguably still are, in a part of the authoritarian project called alignment, in which the would-be authoritarian attempts to align government and social norms and private business behind this single leadership and this single project. And maybe this is a little spicy for Minibar, but I am pretty sure that some of the Stephen Miller types wanted an ICE agent killed. Like, that was one of their primary goals. Because if that happened, they could justify the escalation of force and, who knows, the Insurrection Act or something. That was something we were not going to allow to happen. So we had to choose our strategies very carefully. The last thing we were doing, of course, is protest. And what protest means is providing social and political pushback to something that wants to be unchallenged. We want to remove from ICE the sense of complete impunity that they seem to have and are attempting to demonstrate they have with their actions. So here's what we're doing. Here's our goal. That's not quite enough. This is a security problem, and security requires threat modeling. Threat modeling means know what you're protecting and what you're protecting it against. I'm just going to be very brief. The threat model of this winter, again, is a whole other talk, not this talk. But remember, our goal is to prevent kidnapping. We're trying to protect people. And if we think about our threat model, two things I want to highlight. We are talking about a state actor, very large budget, $70 million now. That doubles to the size of Russia's entire military if this reconciliation bill goes through. Not an exaggeration. And this is a state actor who has access to pervasive surveillance, which means, for example, we know that they watch our cell phone signals. We know that they have license plate readers that track the motion of our cars. We don't know how far this extends. Can this government get access to private Google Docs? We don't know. We have to act as though they might. Can they check locations that we punch into the Maps app on our phone? That is technically possible. Are they doing that? We don't know. We have to think about that possibility. And the last thing, it's not exactly part of the threat model, but it's the context for all of this. In this work, we know with complete certainty that we're all we have. No one is coming to save us. There is no cavalry. The government isn't going to. The city isn't going to. State isn't going to. We've got some good people there, but we are on our own. If we don't protect our neighbors, no one protects our neighbors. This was the overwhelming thought in early December, and it was really clarifying. A lot of bullshit goes out the window really fast when you stop waiting for someone else to come to your rescue. So this is a tough problem, all right? But we're here at a technology conference. Let's take action. Let's solve a problem with technology. Are you ready? This is what you came for. Uh-oh. Oh, there's laughter. Okay. Here's an idea that occurred to me in the first days of the ICE invasion. It turns out like several other people proposed the same idea to me. We had a bunch of people out there trying to track ICE as they move around town, and people did that in part by watching the license plates. We saw this license plate here. Where is that car now? Certainly, digital vision is at the point where we could build automated license plate readers that are stationed either at fixed places or on dashboards that connect to a central database and track ICE vehicles as they move around town. Let's build a DIY license plate reader. This is cool. This is what we came for. All right. I didn't do this because I thought about it for 5 whole minutes. And I just want to walk you through this, not because we can't technically, but because we can't practically, and we shouldn't. Some of my students, hi students, thanks for coming. Some of my students are familiar with me saying, In tech, if you ask, can we, the answer is usually yes. If we ask, should we, then we're actually having the real conversation. Let's think about this for 5 minutes. What's the cost of this? Okay, let's go. They're little Raspberry Pis, off-the-shelf, cheap cameras. How many of them do we need to cover the city? Minneapolis, St. Paul, Shakopee, Columbia Heights. Where was ICE active? All the hell everywhere. How many of these units do we need? Hundreds at a minimum, probably thousands. Maybe we can get the price down to $50 or $100 a piece. I don't know. We're looking at tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars that we need immediately in a time of supply chain disruption. Okay. But once we've got them, they all work forever, right? No, we have to maintain them. If they're outdoors, it's the Minnesota winter, they're in people's houses, the software will have bugs. What's the data source? What if the data source goes down? What if it's attacked? This is a security, hardware maintenance nightmare and software maintenance nightmare. If you gave me 6 months to do this, I'd be nervous. And we had 0 months. We had maybe 2 weeks. Okay, so not a great plan. And here, to top it all off, do you know what ICE started doing? They stopped putting license plates on their cars. They covered them with fake snow. We could invest this huge amount of time and money in a thing that will barely work, only to be defeated by the first stupid thing that these knuckleheads come up with, right? This is a terrible idea. The sort of central lesson of this talk is, if we ask how tech solves problems, the answer is that mostly it doesn't. Yeah, I mean, for real. And it's funny because the engineers I know immediately see this. The wider world, I think, is slower to come to it. I want to warn us, just beware of tech solutionism. And I want to be clear what I mean about that. I think that technology should be built to solve problems, and sometimes it might help, and that's good. If we are asking, how can we help? That's good. If we are nerding out, that is good. Nerding out is beautiful. If we want to be helpful, that's good. These are all good things. By tech solutionism, what I mean is caring about tech and trying to make it solve things. I think that's a terrible mistake. But tech did help. So what technology helped? I was introduced to CryptPad through resistance work. Proton Docs, which is a sort of highly secure alt Google Docs, was just starting to barely be usable this winter. And people were trying it out and making good use of it, despite a lot of hiccups. And of course, if you did anything this winter, you lived on Signal. 3 examples that have several things in common. First, these are all small players, nonprofits, open source. None of these are tech giants. Interesting. Second, all 3 of these heavily emphasize encryption and privacy, and all 3 of them have the feature that the vendor cannot see your data. Third, none of these were built for handling the ICE invasion. None of them are purpose-built. These are all generic, flexible things that already existed. So some lessons. Flexible beats featureful. The tech that ends up being useful is the tech that can be adapted to the situation at hand and can adapt to changing conditions, because we were learning constantly, week by week, day by day, what we wanted to do and how we wanted to do it, and we needed tools that moved with us. There is an urge to add features, and I want to ask us all as technologists to take a step back and instead look to making things more flexible so that you don't need features, you can roll your own. Call it the spreadsheet effect. Another lesson is that end-to-end encryption matters, and what I mean is the vendor can't see the data. End-to-end encryption is a marketing term that gets thrown around a lot, but we need tools where we control our data and product vendors can't even see it. And another talk, but because we were up against a state actor employing pervasive surveillance, We didn't even know what the attack surface of Google Docs or Apple Maps is. Big tech in our situation was dangerous. I want to zoom in on one of those. Our tech hero, you know what's coming, Signal. Yay! As a case study. And yes, Signal is amazing. Signal, we used it for everything. We used it so heavily. We couldn't have done what we did without it. We loved it. We hated it. We complained. People cursed at it. People desperately needed training in it. It was always causing us headaches. Signal was our, actually, frenemy is unkind. What Signal is our friend who really came through for us when we asked way too much of them. Because, Signal is for small group and person-to-person messaging. It's designed around the idea that you are sending private messages to a group of people who are known to you. And we were using it as a mailing list and a discussion forum and a sign-up sheet and a polling platform and God knows what. One of the things we ran into is that there's a 1,000-person limit on groups. Who knew? I don't think the Signal developers ever thought somebody would hit that. Like, that's a limit you put in there to stop the software from breaking. That's not something you think is a problem for your customers. The singing resistance hit the 1,000-person limit, I don't know, at least 5 times. I don't know how many they had to split their announcements group. We found workaround after workaround after workaround. I happened to be online friends with a lovely person who's a developer at Signal, and I sent him some brief notes on some of the stuff that we're... Don't try to read all of that. I'll categorize it for you. So is most of that about the 1,000-person limit? No. Okay, maybe it's feature requests. People want new features, right? No. Okay, it was bugs? No. What was it? This is confusing. This is hard. This is awkward. The default is wrong. The process is hard. People screw it up. It's confusing. It scares people off. And actually, I think both of the things that were listed as bugs are actually usability issues, right? There's a lesson here, which is that usability is the bottleneck. I'm saying that without quality. Okay, so not always, but frequently. We overlook at software is built by humans for humans. Software is for humans. And when we forget the human, we forget our mission. Somebody just turned off the lights up there. I don't want it to be that secret. When I talk about usability issues, I want to give you just one example of what I mean by that. Here's some actual instructions from one of the many, many Signal guides that was circulating. Okay. Oh. I think those lights are exactly backwards. But who knows? I'll take it. Can you all see me? Yeah. We're good. Okay. How do you mute a chat? You go to the chat, you look for the mute button, and you press it. People are so stupid, except people aren't stupid, actually. If you ever design a user interface, please find somebody over the age of 70 and watch them try to use your software and tell yourself, they are not wrong, I'm wrong. How am I making this hard for them? Yes, right? No, watching people try to use Signal made me appreciate how many usability problems this really excellent software has. And folks, we use Signal because it is by far the most usable secure chat. They're the ones who've actually tried. The rest of it, Matrix maybe one day, but come on. I want to give you another example of a usability problem. This is a long explanation of a short problem, which is that leave means unsubscribe, but keep history, and delete means clear history, but stay subscribed, and you have to do both to fully get a group off of your device. It's just a terminology problem. Leave and delete are terrible names for these things, and neither does what you expect it to do. There's a lesson here. This is a really hard one. The things that are most obvious are likely to be the things that are most important, and they're likely to be the things that you forget. I want to give you an example of one of those obvious problems. Signal is designed for small groups of people who know each other. We had to use it for large groups of people who want to stay anonymous to each other. We were really swimming upstream against its design. Signal does an important thing. If someone in one of your groups changes their username, Signal tells you that's really important information if you're in a group of 3 people and you want to stay known to each other. People change their username to indicate their current status and activities they were doing. And in a group of 1,000 people, your group looks like this. And I mean pages and pages of this. The Singing Resistance announcements group, you had to scroll through like 10 screens of this crap to get to the latest announcement. We mentioned it to Signal, and here's what it looks like now. Whoa, hey. Guess what? Usability problems are solvable. You just have to know that they exist. But you won't if you don't talk to people. Find the humans, see the humans, and then fix the problems. So many of these fixes are easy. There is a thing where tech folks can help. We can identify what's easy and do that thing. We are too much in love with what's hard. Easy problems are often the best problems to solve. It wasn't all usability problems. People did do some amazing custom stuff. I just want to call out a few. Let's talk about some custom tech that people built. I talked about flexibility. I keep in my pocket a little whistle that's 3D printed. 3D printers are a great example of a flexible technology that suddenly turned out to be useful. And I have often mocked 3D printers. I think they're cute, but not obviously useful for much. But let me tell you, when we needed a lot of whistles fast and there were supply chain problems, all those nerds in their 3D printers, wow, wow, did they come through. Here's another thing that someone built. There was a massive data collection effort. If you've ever worked with real data, you know how hard and how messy it is. Somebody gathered data about what ICE was doing where, and they put it on a map. I don't know who built this, but they anonymously, through an intermediary who's also anonymous to me, gave me permission to share a screenshot with you. We checked this frequently. It was invaluable. And I just want to mention that the hexagons, the solid hexagons, are abductions. Every one of those is a human being whose life was changed. That map is not even zoomed out all the way. As somebody who thinks about and works with data, this is something that hit me hard. But it's also something that really helped us out. It helped us know where to watch and where to look and where to go. The daily graph of what was happening, you can see the invasion happening and then tapering off, but it's still not at 0. ICE is still out there. The ICE has not gone away. They've just changed. I will say that I don't think the Twin Cities are in the spotlight in the same way. The Eye of Sauron has turned elsewhere, but this is still very much happening. A lesson I want to take from this is just that people are amazing. And when we give people the power to do things that are useful, sometimes they really come through. So how does tech solve problems? Well, mostly it doesn't. But, I like big buts. When we do it right, tech can help people solve problems. Sometimes, on a good day, if we really pay attention. So I warned against tech solutionism, which I define as caring about tech and then trying to find problems it can solve. Can we please stop? Nerd out. Just don't pretend that you're solving a problem. Don't confuse R&D with helping. There's stuff like the Mesh Radio Group, who's also presenting here, like having a mesh network that lets us know that we can stay online when we're on patrol. That would be great. That was not happening this winter. It wasn't going to happen. Come on, that's an R&D project, right? Useful work, but that's not helping yet. Instead of caring about the tech and looking for problems it can solve, what we need to do is care about people and try to understand what they need. Right? We need to center humans. I'm going to thank you. I'm going to put a big heart behind that. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this talk, and I want to take away, it's this. And so there it is, the triumphant end of my talk. I've talked about people trying to help. I'm going to end this on a downer. I think we kind of need to. Tech has been at the center of the ICE invasion in another way. There's an app ICE agents use to identify random people on the street and identify protesters and follow them to their house and drive around their house and menace them and find them based on their license plate and smash their window and take them to Whipple for a day to teach them a lesson, as happened at my neighborhood coffee shop once and a lot of other places around the city. Where do they get the face recognition data? We're not sure, but, tagging people on Facebook has never sat well with me. And, ICE used this to target protesters. They also, it's important to keep in mind, weren't targeting people at all. A lot of these stops were pure Kavanaugh stops, by which I mean that ICE is just driving around and they find somebody who looks brown enough and they figure they might be an immigrant. Let's take them in and find out. This was a very untargeted, chaotic operation, which was part of their design goal. Notice they're doing stuff like my license plate reader fantasy. But they can because they have a massive budget and they don't care if they're right. Chaotic targeting is actually part of the point. If targeting is random, then everyone has to be afraid. And that is a primary goal, is to make everyone afraid. Which brings me to this story. This is one zooming in on. ICE facial recognition kept mistargeting people. If you don't care if you're wrong, what data does is it just gives you confidence to do whatever damn fool thing you want to do. The existence of data can be an excuse to hurt people in the wrong hands. And let's be clear, they weren't just targeting Black and brown individuals or protesters. They're monitoring entire neighborhoods. You probably are noticing a lot of these are from 404 Media. Read them if you're not. They've done some of the best investigative journalism. Good folks. Where does this data come from? You've probably heard about cell phone tracking. I hope at this point that you've heard that the little stupid, Candy Crush clone advertisements on your phone are also gathering your location if they can and selling it. We know for a fact that the federal government has been using data brokers to track people without warrants. That's another talk, but it's one that you should go to if anybody does it. Data brokers are an incredible security threat. And we have pretty strong, do you all remember this specific incident, like this poor guy being dragged out of his home in his underwear? He's a US citizen. We're pretty sure that ICE targeted him based on bad data. And it was really obvious they had the wrong guy, should have been, but that didn't matter to them because chaotic random harassment is the goal. Data was just the justification. So there's some tough lessons we all need to think about here too. The first, to paraphrase Zeynep Tufekci, We built the machinery of an authoritarian dystopia to get more people to click on ads. For real. We need to remember that if it can be abused, it will be abused. We need to think about abuse cases much more clearly when we're building things. I don't know that a whole lot of the people at Thomson Reuters thought that they were funneling data to ICE, but they are. Some of you might be in the audience. It might not be your fault, but it's your problem. It's all of our problem. Yeah. This is a big one. It's important to keep in mind that bad data is often worse than no data. It gives us false confidence. It lets bad actors misuse it. It creates situations that should not happen. We need to be a lot more careful about what data we collect. I'm old enough to remember the brand new catchphrase among startups being, data is the new oil. Do you remember this? You have a startup idea, you don't need a business plan, just gather data and sell it to someone who, ICE, it turns out. I mean, that's where that ended up 15 years later. The only data that's truly secure is data that doesn't exist, and maybe the thing that you do in your life is just not add that database column in the first place. And, you know, if a database column is mandatory, I'll just say that not all data in a database has to be accurate, and I'll leave it there. All right. I want to talk about one more lesson back to the start of all of this. Before we even get to Signal, before we get to the surveillance, the very first community meeting I was a part of, there were tech questions. There were tech discussions. And what were they about? It was stuff like, please, for the love of God, have a passcode on your phone at all. Well, I didn't know it mattered. Well, what do I have to worry about? Find that setting that shows the content of messages on your lock screen, even when the phone is locked. That was already a terrible idea. Banks use SMS for two-factor authentication. And I don't know about SMS being 2FA. That's a little questionable in my book. But, like, come on, Apple, Android, like, just hide the content of messages on the lock screen by default, for the love of God. Bad defaults create innumerable problems. Default settings rule the world. As techies, I think it's really hard to remember just how non-obvious a lot of what we do is. Simple, obvious things are huge. Default settings are huge. There's a really good guide to the default settings you should change, this stands for surveillance self-defense.eff.org. Whole family of guides that are built around knowing your threat model and doing simple things to keep you safer. Highly recommend it. And there's another lesson that is related to that, which is at this point, our devices, they aren't actually built for us. I never thought that I would miss consumer capitalism so much, but investor capitalism is so much worse. At this point, we are just one link in a giant money-making machine. Our devices aren't built for us. They have terrible defaults, in part because making privacy and security the default would upset a lot of business models. So my last little pair of thoughts for this session, well, second to last, really. I think it's time for us to take charge of tech again. Right? There's that guide again. But I mean more than just changing the settings on your phone. I mean, as technologists, we need to look at the ways that we are riding along with the social currents and just do a little bit more active pushing back. And maybe get out from under the thumb of some of the big vendors and cause more trouble for the business models that have put us in this situation. What does that look like? I don't know, but I have some meta advice. And here is actually my final thought of the presentation. I've argued against text solutionism. Don't chase that feeling of being the hero who solved the problem. Text solutionism, that feeling of loving the tech and wanting to find things that it can solve, having that golden hammer, and when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, that is in part rooted in ego. We all want to be the hero. And we've got to let go of that. And instead, my homework for you, just show up and do the work. This winter, I spent the entire period of December and January racking my brains, trying to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do, because nothing was going to be good enough. Nothing was going to work. What we were doing couldn't possibly be enough. At no point did it feel like we were solving the problem. We were barely functioning. A lot of the work I did was helping people just make impossible decisions, like this list of vulnerable families I'm helping. Should I put it in a secure spreadsheet or keep it on a piece of paper? That's where the work was. It did not feel like being a hero. It was conversations where I'd say, yeah, those are both pretty bad choices. I don't know what the hell you're supposed to do. Let's talk through it. It never felt like we were solving the problem, and then the surge ended. You will not feel like you are the hero. You will not feel like you are solving the problem. What it feels like is you just show up and do the work. Look in front of you, find the human, ask what they need, and then do that work. That is my closing thought for all of you. Thank you so much for being here. And thanks. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. I'm a professor. I have homework for you. That's your homework. Just show up and do the work. But we have 3 minutes left. And I promised there would be a tiny scaffolded discussion. I see a question too, but I just want to do this. Think to yourself really quickly now. What does that look like for you? What is your homework that you want to give yourself in terms of showing up and doing the work? And I want you, this is going to be terrifying. I know this is Minnesota, but please turn to a stranger near you and tell them what homework you just gave yourself. We're going to close out the session that way. Do that now, and thank you.